Americans are afraid. For the first time, they fear their government.
All right, let's bring in one of the Republican lawmakers who is asking tough questions of the Attorney General today. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Do What You Said You Would Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, welcome back, sir.
Shannon, good to be with you. Thanks for mentioning our book, too. You can get it on pre-order now. It's available for pre-order on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. So thanks for having me.
Sure. Okay, so you said there today in the hearing, as we played in the intro, that Americans are afraid of their government. What did you mean by that, and where are you hearing that?
Well, September 29th, the left-wing political organization, National School Boards Association, writes the President of the United States asking him to get the FBI involved in local school board matters. 5 days later. 5 days later, the Attorney General of the United States does just that. And in the opening line of his memo, he says, there's been an uptick in violence and harassment and threats to school personnel. I asked him today in the hearing, what data did you see that showed you that there was an uptick in this harassment or violence or threats? What was the basis for that? What information did you have? I had the school board's letter. So you get a political organization writing a letter, and the Attorney General takes action on just that. And now parents are thinking, wow, what's going to happen? The FBI is going to be setting up this open line of dedicated communication for threat reporting, this snitch line, as I said in the committee. This is a chilling impact I think this is going to have on Americans' First Amendment protected speech and what goes on at our school board meetings. So I think that's what scares Americans so much.
You mentioned the memo that came in from the School Board Association, and then very quickly after that, the DOJ got involved with this plan that they've rolled out to have communication, to monitor threats, those kinds of things. The Federalist, among other groups, is reporting that there was actually communication before that memo came in from the National School Board. They say this: emails obtained by Parents Defending Education, a group, through the Freedom of Information Act indicate that NSBA president, that's that school board group, and the CEO conspired and exchanged information with the White House before releasing that official demand from the Biden administration to get law enforcement involved in targeting parents. So I read that as potentially there was a conversation about putting together something that would say there was a threat, so then the White House could then say, this administration could say, there's a threat, we need to investigate. Is that how you read that?
Totally how I read it. I didn't know that had happened for sure. We had heard reports that there was some talk of this and this FOIA request with emails that they had obtained. But it doesn't surprise me. Again, when the turnaround is this rapid, the president gets a letter. 5 days later, the Attorney General takes action and does exactly what the political organization asked the president to do. You don't think there was coordination on the front end before all that started? Seems likely to me, and this seems to be what this FOIA request has now uncovered. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me a bit because it's part of the pattern. Remember, the President Biden criticized the Georgia election law. A few months later, Merrick Garland sued the state of Georgia. President Biden criticized the Texas pro-life law. 8 days later, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, sues Texas. The school board sends a letter to the president. 5 days later, we get the action that we talked about today in the hearing where the Attorney General's office is now, Justice Department is going to go after parents at school board meetings. This shows how political everything has become for this administration.
Well, we've got some new Fox News polling out. Interestingly enough, we'll put this up quickly about what parents are worried about, what voters and people are worried about when it comes to schools. 63% schools pushing a political plan. But also there, we see threats against officials. So people are concerned about that. And another poll that we've got, it breaks it out and it asks school boards asking for DOJ help. What do you think that's really about? Now, the people who replied said 53% said they actually truly need protection. 40% said it was about trying to stop opposition. So there's clearly a perception that there are some threats to these school board members, and people think that's what this DOJ situation is about.
I don't think that's what it's about. And if there are real threats and real things, that is wrong. And people who do those kind of things should be held accountable. But that's a local police matter. I mean, one of the questions I didn't get to ask the Attorney General was, have local police asked for the FBI's involvement and FBI's help in dealing with school board matters and local school board meetings? My guess is the answer to that question is no, but the FBI and the Justice Department doesn't seem to care. So if people do wrong, of course they need to be held accountable. But remember what's going on here. Parents are going to school board meetings and saying, we don't want critical race theory. We don't want this racist, hate America curriculum taught to our kids. And God bless them for doing that. And it sort of comes to, begs the sort of fundamental question, who cares more about children? The government or parents? Who's the ultimate authority when it comes to a child's education? Is it moms and dads, or is it the federal government? I think the answer is squarely with parents, but it doesn't seem to be that's what the School Board Association believes in, or that's what the federal government, Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, believe. So that's the problem there, and I think that's what has parents so concerned.
Yeah, it's certainly set up a very interesting conversation about the competing interests and what's going on there with these conversations. I also want to ask you, because this is something that House Republicans have been on for well over a year, looking at the situation with research at that Wuhan Institute. National Review today reporting on this. They say that NIH admits to funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan, says EcoHealth violated reporting requirements. Say a top NIH official admitted in a Wednesday letter that U.S. taxpayers funded gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses in Wuhan, and revealed that EcoHealth Alliance, the U.S. nonprofit that funneled NIH money to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, was not transparent about the work it was doing. And I would make a couple notes. I don't think the letter ever uses gain-of-function. There are experts out there who say essentially what they were saying equates to that. And they also say there was no link to this, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, but some admissions there that seem like information we haven't had before.
Yeah, well, how do they know first of all, how do they know there was no link? I mean, come on, they got it wrong. Back in July, we sent them a letter. They responded to us and said no gain of function was going on. This wasn't happening at this Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. And now here we are 2 months later, and shazam, oh, different story. They were doing gain of function. They weren't being square with us, is what the NIH is telling us about EcoHealth. And you couple all that, Shannon, with what they've already told us, what they've already misled us about. Remember, on January 31st, 2020, Dr. Fauci gets an email from Dr. Christian Andersen, and the email says at 10:32 p.m. at night, the email says, virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. That is a fancy way of saying this thing started in a lab. But for the last year and a half, Dr. Fauci has downplayed that and said, no, it wasn't from a lab. It was a bat to a pangolin to a hippopotamus to Joe Rogan, and then we had this terrible thing happen all over the world. That makes absolutely no sense. And what they tried to tell us in July made absolutely no sense either. So I think the real big question here is, when did Dr. Fauci find this out? And when he gave his answers to Senator Paul in the committee, did he already know what NIH reported to us today? And if so, then he wasn't being square with the American people and wasn't being honest with Senator Paul in his response.
Maybe you all will have him back to the Hill. I think we'd all be very interested and tune in. Congressman Jordan, thanks always for your time.
You bet, Shannon. Thank you.